Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Eric Toring. I'm the Senior Vice President for the American College of Veterinary Preventive Medicine, and I want to welcome you to today's continuing education webinar. The webinar is sponsored by the American College of Veterinary Preventive Medicine, the American Association of Food Safety and Public Health Veterinarians, the National Association of Federal Veterinarians, the National Association of State Public Health Veterinarians, and finally the U.S. Animal Health Association. So today I am honored to introduce our three guest speakers. We'll go in order of the first one to speak today will be Dr. Chris Hostetler. Dr. Hostetler is the Director of Animal Science for the Pork Checkoff, overseeing efforts to produce poultry sustainability. He directs research programs, manages emerging issues, and develops educational materials related to animal science. His current work includes understanding nutrient utilization within the circular economy of pork management strategies for pig livability and leveraging genetic innovation to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Before working at the National Pork Board, he was on faculty at South Dakota State University, managing a research lab on applied swine nutrition and teaching courses. Dr. Hostetler earned his Bachelor of Science from Purdue University, his Master of Science from the University of Florida, and his Doctor of Philosophy from Washington State University. He also completed a postdoctoral study at Washington State University. I believe our second speaker will be Dr. Heather Fowler. Dr. Fowler completed her veterinary medical degree at the University of Pennsylvania School of Veterinary Medicine in 2010, a Master's of Public Health at the Yale School of Public Health in 2011, and a PhD in Environmental and Occupational Hygiene from the University of Washington School of Public Health in 2017. She is board certified in veterinary preventive medicine and has expertise in the areas of zoonotic diseases, public health, worker safety and health, and One Health application. In the summer of 2017, Dr. Fowler began work as the Director of Producer and Public Health at the National Pork Board, where she oversees public health as well as occupational safety and health issues as they relate to swine production in the United States. And our third speaker today, Dr. Marissa Rotolo, is the Director of Swine Health for the National Pork Board. She oversees the National Pork Board's Swine Disease Research Task Force and supports programs like the Certified Swine Sampler Collector Program, Secure Pork Supply, and AgView. Before joining the National Pork Board in 2023, Dr. Rotolo is a health assurance veterinarian at Pig Improvement Company of North America, managing farm health and leading foreign animal disease preparedness. She also oversaw live animal export requirements and was involved in developing the porcine reproductive and respiratory system resistant pig. Previously, she was a postdoctoral research associate focusing on diagnostic tools, surveillance, and response strategies for foreign animal diseases at Iowa State University and the USDA. Dr. Rotolo earned her DVM and PhD in veterinary microbiology from Iowa State University. So we'll kick things off. Please welcome Dr. Hostet.
Well, thank you, Eric. And we are honored to participate today in the webinar for your audience. As Eric said, I'm Chris Hostetler, the Director of Animal Science for the National Pork Board. I, along with my colleagues, Dr. Rotolo and Fowler, are going to give you a webinar entitled Porkology 101, a crash course in the U.S. swine industry. So a little bit of housekeeping just to cover off on the topics that we are going to be presenting on today. Some of you may not be familiar with the pork checkoff, and so I'll give a brief overview of what the checkoff is all about, as well as give you a swine industry overview. And then Dr. Rotolo will talk about swine health and biosecurity. And Heather will wrap up our time today talking about One Health and the U.S. swine industry. So what is the pork checkoff? Well, the pork checkoff is a federally, we at the pork checkoff represent the U.S. pig farmers. So we're a commodity organization. We represent the U.S. pig farmers. It came into being through a piece of legislation that was passed in 1985 called the 1985 Pork Act, and it established a mandatory checkoff, and those funds go to provide research to answer questions that producers struggle with every day. Um, those funds go to promotion of pork and pork products, both domestically and internationally. And then we also use them for education and certification programs, both for consumers as well as pork producers. Prior to 1985, there was a voluntary checkoff that ran for 20 years from 1967 through 1986. And even before that, there was the National Swine Growers Council that started in the 1920s. And this is a picture in the bottom right-hand corner that was taken of the members of the National Swine Growers Council at the Chicago stockyards in the 1920s. So I think there, like any organization, we've evolved over time. We've been around for more than 100 years in various capacities and with various charges. But really, this shows the continuous improvement that our pork producers have at their heart. Some more basics about the pork checkoff. The U.S. pork producers and importers pay 35 cents for every $100 in value when pigs are either sold or pigs or pork products come into the United States. We are a consumer-focused, producer-led organization. So what does that mean? We are consumer-focused. We pay attention to what the consumers are asking for in terms of pork, and our pork producers lead the organization. There are 15 members of our board of directors, and because we are federally mandated, that pork producers have to pay into the fund. We have oversight by the USDA Ag Marketing Service. So everything that we produce that is outward facing, including this webinar today, was reviewed and approved by USDA AMS. So just give you a little bit of an overview for the U.S. swine industry. So we work closely with other organizations that are involved in the swine industry. So for example, we support our state pork associations that do local advocacy, education, and promotion. We work very closely with our sister organization, the National Pork Producers Council. They do work in policy advocacy, trade, and regulatory issues. So what's the difference between them and us? Again, we are a mandatory checkoff, while the National Pork Producers Council is a voluntary contribution or donation. So that's how they run their organization or receive revenue for their organization. And so they are able to work in spaces where we are not, including policy, trade, and regulatory activities. So I'll just give you a brief swine industry overview. Just the objectives of this piece is to introduce you to how pigs are raised in the United States. Of course, we use, like any industry, we use jargon. So we'll go over some vocabulary and some statistics. We'll talk a little bit about genetics, feeding, how we have the facilities we use to house the animals, and how we transport them. So just by way of vocabulary, we generally classify pigs in a variety of ways. So the term pig that you may hear, pigs or pigs, is just a general term that is for any domesticated swine. It can be any body weight size, any phase of production, any genetics, or any gender. So it's just a general term for domesticated swine. While the term piglet is actually reserved for young pigs that are usually nursing on their mother. And so that would be from the time they are born until they are weaned. And then after they have weaned, they become market hogs. We refer to them as market hogs. Sometimes you'll hear that as grow finish hogs, and that's because they have entered the growing and finishing phase of their life cycle. But these are the market hogs, or hogs that are raised for the specific purpose of food production. They fall into two categories according to gender, so barrows and gilts. Barrows are castrated male pigs, and all of the barrows in the United States are raised for meat production. We call those market hogs. And then gilt is a term that we use for any female pig that has not had piglets. And there are two classifications of gilts as well. Some gilts, in fact, the vast majority of gilts are not intended for breeding or to enter the breeding herd, and they would be referred to as a market hog. And then gilts that are selected to enter the breeding herd but not yet given birth to a litter of pigs, we refer to those often as breeding gilts. I've already introduced the idea of breeding and breeding herds. So the term breeding stock are pigs that are specifically kept for the purpose of reproduction. And again, based on gender, they fall into two categories. Sows are female pig is a female pig that has given birth already. And in parentheses there, I have farrowed. So in pigs, the act of giving birth is called farrowing, another term. And sows are multiparous. They give birth to multiple litters of pigs over the course of their lifetime. And sow meat at the end of their productive lifetime, sows go to slaughter, and their meat is used for processed pork, such as sausage, pepperoni, and that sort of thing. Boars, on the other hand, are intact male pigs that are used for breeding. Their meat typically never enters a commercial food supply because of the very strong odor that is associated with heating or cooking of that meat. So just by the numbers here, what's our impact of the U.S. Swine industry? Well, we represent at the National Pork Checkoff, we represent more than 60,000 pork producers in the United States. The pigs that they grow produce 27 billion pounds of pork annually, and they provide employment for over 573,000 people. Much of that pork is exported. So of that 27.3 billion, about 30% is exported and would go to various countries around the world. Currently, Mexico and Japan are our largest trading partners. And pork is one of the most consumed animal proteins globally. What about the biology of the animal? Um, you may be familiar with some of these biological statistics as well, but 22 days is the length of time of a sow's estrus cycle, a female's estrus cycle. So that would be the number of days between estrus periods. And of course, from veterinary school, you probably all remember that 3 months, 3 weeks, and 3 days is the length of gestation in pigs. That's also 114 days, which is much more difficult to remember. On average, sows in the US have 11 piglets in each of their litters, and they farrow 2.4 times a year. So they have 2.4 litters per year. If you do the math on that real quick, it comes up to one sow producing about 26 pigs a year in the US on average. We wean pigs at between 21 and 24 days of age, and then they go to market at 5.5 to 6 months of age. During that time, those 5.5 to 6 months, they will gain about 285 pounds, which is the average market weight. Of course, the birth weight of a pig is about three to 3.5 pounds. So they're gaining about 280 pounds in their lifetime. In total, a sow will produce about 3,500 pounds of pork in 1 year. So I'm just going to pause here because there's quite a bit that this says about the production efficiency of the U.S. Pig farm. So if you just think about the amount of pork that one female produces, 3,500 pounds, if you compare that to beef cattle, for example, one cow produces one calf annually. That calf goes to market about 1,200 pounds and would be about 600 pounds of beef. So one beef cow in the U.S. herd produces about 600 pounds of beef, while one sow in the U.S. herd produces about 3,500 pounds. So that's over 5 times the amount of a cow. So that's a little bit about the production efficiencies, and of course you can't reach that unless you have really good solid foundational genetics. And so you may hear a lot of discussion about either purebred animals that are used for show in the show ring, or heritage breed animals that are used mostly for white tablecloth type of restaurants and dining experiences. But the pork that ends up in most meat counters in the United States, grocery stores in the United States, are really a composite breed. So what do we mean by a composite breed? So I've got this little equation down here to help me talk through this. But on the left-hand side, there's a boar. It's a brown or a red boar. So that breed, that color is indicative of a Duroc breed. But herd boars in the United States can also be crossbred. Generally, those boars that breed and that crossbreeding is known for meat quality. It's known for muscling. It's known for leanness, and it's known for their rates of gain. What they're not known for, the females of those breeds are not known for having large litters and producing a lot of milk. And so they cross those boars with a female here to the right of the plus sign that is a composite breed as well. So she is likely a crossbred between a Yorkshire and a Landrace. Yorkshires are known for having very large litters, and the Landrace breed is known for producing a lot of milk. Just a side note, we talked little bit about the comparison between beef and pork, and on a pound for pound basis, a Yorkshire by Landrace sow will produce more milk than a Holstein in the U.S. herd. So they milk as hard as Holstein cows do as well. So when you cross a male that is a breed that's known for muscling and rate of gain and pork quality with a female that's a good mother, produces a lot of pigs and a lot of milk, then you get this crossbred animal that's over here on the right-hand side of the equal sign. And that's our composite breed. Then that animal would be, again, referred to as a market hog, would be fed to 285 pounds at 5.5 to 6 months of age, would go to market, would be processed, and would show up in the meat case at a grocery store. And of course, genetics is only one half of it, right? So you also have to feed these pigs well. And so we develop specifically designed diets to meet specific nutritional needs of the pigs, depending on their age, their weight, and their production phase. So these are the 6 classifications of nutrients. And so we design our diets to meet these needs. So energy usually is in the form of corn, but we can also use wheat, barley, and bakery meal. Those are some other carbohydrate sources. So for energy, we get most of that from the carbohydrate that's present in grains. Um, and of course, amino acids, animals have a specific nutritional need for amino acids that comes from soybean meal, but it can also come from dried distillers grains or DDGS, which is a co-product of the ethanol industry. It can come from field peas or beans. These are our protein sources that we feed to pigs. Lipids show up in the diet as soybean oil or tallow or choice white grease. And then we feed vitamins, both the fat and the water soluble vitamins, as well as minerals, both macro and micro minerals. And in order for pigs to grow well, we of course have to provide them with an ad libitum source of fresh, clean water at all times. When everything goes well, we can expect a feed efficiency around 2.6 pounds of feed for every 1 pound of body weight gain that a pig goes through. So if you were to compare that to some of the other species in terms of efficiency, Fish are about 1.2 pounds of feed for 1 pound of gain. Chicken is around 2.2 pounds of feed per 1 pound of gain. We, of course, here at 2.6, and beef cattle would be around 7 pounds of feed for 1 pound of gain. So pigs are very efficient at converting grain into lean muscle. So how do we house these animals in the United States? Well, there's a variety of ways that producers grow their pigs. And so I just have four of them demonstrated here. And so I'll just talk through them briefly. In the top left-hand corner is a group of pigs that is in a hoop structure. This is a structure that has solid sides, and there's a there's a framework that a curtain or a canvas is stretched across. You see there's open area for ventilation. The end of the building can also be open for ventilation, and they're on deep bedding, usually a straw or maybe corn stover, corn stalks bedding. And the pigs are housed in these sort of large groups. And then indoor housing is typical that you would see in Iowa or throughout the Midwest. But again, there's a central alleyway here. You can see it's on a concrete floor that's got slats in it. The pigs live on that flooring. The manure works its way through the floor and is deposited in a pit underneath the building. It can then be collected and pumped out onto the fields as part of a nutrient management plan to serve as fertilizer. And I believe Dr. Rotolo will talk a little bit more about that during her presentation. There's a pasture system as well. There's still pigs that are raised out on pasture. Of course, there's not a lot of protection from the elements, so there would likely be some sort of a structure where the pigs could get inside at night and get out of the extreme cold. And then there's a type of housing that is an outdoor access, so the open fronted building that provides a roof over the top that's got shade. Pigs eat in the shaded area, sleep back there, but then have access to an outdoor run. Again, these are almost all concrete floors so that they can be scraped and cleaned, and the manure could be part of a manure management program. Um, Regardless of what type of housing that the producer uses for their pigs, we, along with the American Association of Swine Veterinarians and the National Pork Producers Council, agree that any of those systems should meet these 8 criteria that are down here at the bottom. I'm not going to read through them all, but it is an agreement that we have between our organizations on the requirements for housing. And of course, you've heard probably a lot of talk about pigs that are raised in stalls. So just for a little bit of clarity, pigs that are raised for meat consumption do not live in individual stalls in the United States. They're housed in group pens. The stalls are used specifically for sows that are producing piglets. And so if you think about that, we've got just under 6 million pigs in the U.S. Sow herd, and we've got just under 70 million pigs in the U.S. market herd at any point in time. So there's a very small percentage of pigs that are actually housed in stalls during their lifetime. So this picture that I've got here shows a farrowing stall with a sow laying in the farrowing stall. You can see that there's an area where she is confined to. She can lay down, stand up, sit down in this area. And then is a creep area on either side of her. And that creep area is where the piglets can live, can stay to get out from away from the sow, either stepping on or laying on them. There's a couple of features about this crate that I'll talk about. Piglets like it warmer, and so you'll see those 2 bright lights on the other side over there. Those are over the top of a black rubberized mat, and that rubberized mat would attract heat, so the piglets are attracted to that. They like it warmer than the sow, and so that's an opportunity for zonal heating. And of course, the sow, we have to provide feed and water to the sow. And there's a stainless steel feeder in the front that's got feed in it. And then there's a galvanized pipe that comes down off the top of the crate, and that has a water attached to it. So that would be the water delivery system for the pig. And of course, those are concrete, plastic, metal that can all be power washed to remove the organic material. It can be sanitized using a sanitizer and prepared for the next round of pigs. Again, sows are in here for 21 days with their piglets, their litter of pigs. So housing in gestation, what does that look like? Gestation stalls or free access stalls. So I got an example of each one of those. So gestation stall here on the left-hand side, it's a row of stalls that the sows live in. There is the great advantage to this is that you can feed the sows to their individual needs. So there's a feeder at the top that can be adjusted, and so you can feed the thin sows more, provide more feed to the thin sows, and you can put the overweight sows on a diet so you can meet their nutritional needs. And of course, they're protected from any kind of aggressive behaviors from any of their neighbors. On the other hand, there's this free access stalls here on the right-hand side. In the foreground of that picture, those sows are penned up in the stalls. They can be penned there temporarily. They can be released after feeding or after a management such as pregnancy detection or vaccinations. And they can socialize in this area that you can see in the background there where those sows are out in. And then, of course, one of the ways that we have been really working on in the industry over the last 10 to 15 years is sort of this group housing of sows in gestation. So this picture just shows a group of sows. Those generally are anywhere from 60 to 150 sows in a pen. The green portion that you see at the top are electronic sow feeding stations. So the sows can enter those areas individually. There's a reader in there that identifies using RFID, identifies who the sow is, and then the computer controls the allotment of feed that is delivered to that sow. So it's a really good way of controlling body condition in sows. So what's our position on sow housing? And so I would say that really at the heart of this, I'm not going to read it verbatim, but at the heart of this is at what's best for the pig itself. And it really relies on research that we or others have funded to determine the best housing system for sows. And regardless of the system, what really matters is the individual care that's given to each individual sow. So transportation is a critical part of how we raise pigs in the United States. You know, we transport pigs from the farrowing facility to their growing and finishing facilities. We transport pigs to market. We transport breeding stock. There's a saying that any given day in in the state of Iowa, there's 1 million pigs that are on the road at any given day. And some of the things that we seek to instill during transportation is to ensure swine health and welfare, worker safety, and pork quality. And one of the things that we do as part of that system that ensures pork quality is to, when pigs are delivered to a slaughter plant, they are placed in these large pens that are called lairage pens. And it just allows the pigs to be there for anywhere from 2 to 6 hours. And it allows them to rest, to recover from transportation, and it dramatically improves the pork quality that comes from that. So during this time, of course, pigs must have access to water prior to slaughter. So with that, I've covered off a little bit about what the checkoff is and some of our industry statistics and vocabulary. I'm going to turn the presentation over to Dr. Rotolo to talk about swine diseases and biosecurity.
Thanks so much, Dr. Hostetler. As he said, my name is Marisa Rotolo. I am a veterinary epidemiologist, and so what I'm going to go over today is a brief overview of some of our swine diseases of note and ways that we prevent them. Swine medicine is a bit different than, let's say, small animal medicine. It's a population-based medicine versus that individual care. So first and foremost, our most impactful pathogen that we have for domestic diseases in the U.S. swine herd would be porcine reproductive and respiratory syndrome virus, affectionately called PRRS. This virus has a huge financial impact for our industry at about the tune of $1.2 billion per year. There are two strains, type 1, which is the European strain, type 2, which is the North American strain. This particular pathogen can affect pigs of all ages. However, the way that it presents will depend on the age and phase of that pig. So for your breeding age gilts and sows and boars, you're going to see some anorexia, some fever, lethargy, and respiratory distress. In your breeding herd, you'll see more reproductive effects. So you'll see some stillbirths, mummies, abortions, and a decreased conception rate. In nursery pigs, you'll see more respiratory disease or ADR, ain't doing right. And then your grow finish, again, you'll see that fever, depression, lethargy, poor growth, and respiratory disease. This particular pathogen can be spread in multiple ways through oral and nasal secretions, semen, urine, milk, feces, fomites, transport, take your pick, which probably is why it's one of our toughest pathogens to manage and most challenging. Next up, we have porcine epidemic diarrhea virus, or PED. This showed up in the U.S. swine herd about April 2015. This is one of our enteric bugs. It causes gastrointestinal signs. It can affect all ages of pigs. The main pinch point for this particular pathogen is in the nursery or younger piglets. We can see high mortality up to 100%. What you would be looking for would be mortality and dehydration in piglets, diarrhea, depression, and anorexia in your older population, so your sows and growing pigs. This particular pathogen is transmitted via the fecal-oral route. We've also seen it be moved through feed or feed ingredients, as well as fomites, transport, and personnel. Next up would be influenza A virus. So I'm sure many are familiar with this particular virus. This is one that is a little bit different for us because it does have that public health implication to it being a zoonotic pathogen. It can affect all ages of pigs. It does love to mutate, so I joke that it is the Madonna of viruses. Based on its strain, it will determine your morbidity and mortality. Essentially, you're going to be looking for respiratory illness, fever, lethargy, anorexia, weight loss, and labored breathing, which is something that we will refer to as thumping. This particular pathogen, much like other flus that we see, transmitted by respiratory droplets such as sneezing and coughing, contact with nasal discharges, or by fomites. Our two strains that we have in our US herd most prevalent would be H3N2 and H1N1. I know there's a lot of information in the news right now, particularly for our folks in dairy and poultry about H5N1. That would be classified as a foreign animal disease and is not present in the US swine herd. So I've gone over some viruses. Now let's talk bacteria. We've got Streptococcus suis, another zoonotic pathogen. This one is primarily going to be seen in your nursery or recently weaned pigs. So you'll go into a nursery and you'll hear from the guys working in there, hey, we've got some pigs that are paddling or in lateral recumbency. They're showing central nervous signs. And so that's going to be one of the main keys that clues you into, hey, this might be Streptococcus suis. This one is transmitted through ingestion, inhalation, or nose-to-nose contact. And so I only highlighted 4 diseases, but we do have other viruses and bacteria of note, but those would be the ones that we deal with more frequently. And so one of the things is, how do we keep these pathogens out of our pigs? And one of our main tools, our most important tool, in my opinion, would be biosecurity. So biosecurity is a set of steps taken to prevent the introduction of a pathogen into a farm and manage an infection once present. So why do we need biosecurity? Why does it matter? As you guys know, just like people, pigs can get sick, and our job is to keep them healthy and free of disease. So we've got two main routes of infection that our biosecurity practices target. So we've got direct and indirect. So, you have your direct with nose-to-nose contact, you have your indirect with fomites, feed. One of our biggest challenges for indirect transmission would be transportation being one source or a risk for disease. We do have some biosecurity programs in the US. We've got our Pork Quality Assurance Plus, which was developed in 1989. Biosecurity is an integral part of this program, as is the herd health plan. You can see the link there if you wanted to learn more about PQA Plus. We also have our Secure Pork Supply Plan. So this is going to be an enhanced biosecurity program, both for domestic or endemic diseases, as well as foreign animal diseases. So this is a resource for producers who are looking to improve their biosecurity, not only for pathogens such as PRRS or influenza, as well as our foreign animal disease pathogens such as African swine fever and classical swine fever. So something to keep in mind as it relates to biosecurity is not all farms are the same and not all biosecurity practices are the same. So I always say that it doesn't matter what the setup of the farm is, we can create a biosecurity plan to help minimize that risk of disease transmission. So every farm is different and you just have to find a plan that works for your farm. The most important thing as it relates to biosecurity is you want to have clear protocols, a solid training program, and regular touch points to ensure that people are really understanding that information. So first, when someone gets hired, you want to provide them with written biosecurity protocols for their review, and then institute regular refreshers with your farm personnel. The most important thing is ensuring that people understand why they have to do what they do. Understanding helps with compliance as it relates to biosecurity. One of the main points for biosecurity in the swine world is understanding what is clean and what is dirty. So it kind of goes against what you would naturally think. You would think where the pigs are living, oh, because they're pooping and then it's a barn, that would be dirty. But we actually classify the animal housing areas and inside the farm, or inside the barn, excuse me, as clean and everything outside of the barn as dirty. And so we can have those different areas demarcated by two things. The line of separation, which is one of the terms from our secure pork supply, and then the clean dirty line. So these are the exact same thing, it's just different terminology. Essentially what this is if you were to walk into a farm, you could see a bench or you could see a red line. It's something that demarcates clean and dirty sides of the barn and should be a visual indicator that there is a biosecurity intervention that needs to occur when you come across that. So one of the things that you need to do on your sites is evaluate your inputs and outputs. So what's coming onto the farm and what's leaving the farm. So you can see here, we have some mortality management here, and these would be pigs that had passed either from disease or normal production. Notice the use of the equipment to help our farm personnel handle those carcasses. We've also got feed delivery, animal transport, and animal movement. Those would be our top inputs and outputs. So first, I want to quickly go over some biosecurity interventions or some biosecurity pinch points for us. The first would be farm entry, so getting into the farm. You want to make sure that you are adhering to the downtime protocols. And when I say downtime, different farms will have a specific requirement for how long you need to be away from other pigs or pig facilities before going to those farms. They may have a shower in, shower out, and so what that's going to entail is you show up in your street clothes, you cross that line of separation either through a bench entry system as seen here, or whichever protocol that they've put forward. But that involves a full clothing change. So you would cross over, disrobe, take a full shower, and then change into farm-specific clothing. So nothing from the outside is coming in. At the very least, if you don't have a shower in, shower out facility, you would utilize that bench entry and have a change of clothes and change of shoes. So these are some considerations for visiting a farm if you're not an employee there. First, you want to contact the owner or the manager to get a clear understanding of those farms' protocols for biosecurity, particularly that downtime. Make sure that your vehicles are clean with special attention to those high traffic areas, such as your floor mats. You're going to want to, if you need to bring something to the farm, make sure that you're bringing things that are new or cleaned and disinfected. Understand the biosecurity boundaries for the farm, so understand where the driveway is, because some of these will have different traffic patterns, and you want to make sure that you're following the correct one. Park away from the barn, leave personal items like jewelry or your cell phone in your car. Make sure to wear that farm-specific clothing and coveralls, and place any garbage, dirty coveralls, footwear, supplies in a appropriate receptacle. And then at the end, make sure that you're cleaning and disinfecting all of the supplies used during the visit and washing your vehicle. So let's talk supply entry. Let's say you're going to the farm, you need to collect a blood sample. How are you going to get your syringes and your blood tubes in? There's a couple different ways that we can do this. The simplest would be to have an appropriate disinfectant and soak the supplies that you're bringing in, allowing for appropriate contact time. On average, that would be about 10 minutes, making sure that you got good coverage over that supply. There's also other tools that we can use. We have a UV chamber, making sure that the supply is placed in the UV chamber and has access to all of that UV light. So you don't want to put it in there and have it be blocked by something. In addition, if you need to have something that's a little bit bigger that can't go through a UV chamber or can't go through that additional supply entry, we do have fumigation rooms. And so those are going to be larger rooms where you can bring in larger supplies such as feed bins. And what those would entail is you'd have a room, you've got foggers which spray disinfectant, and then those supplies would sit overnight and then be taken out on the clean side. Let's talk pig transport. So this is going to be one of those points that if you're going to see disease, you might see it after you've received new pigs or you've shipped pigs. And so essentially this is a really important step for us for biosecurity and keeping diseases out. You want to make sure that your vehicles are clean, disinfected, and dry. You want to make sure that you understand your farm biosecurity boundaries. Most importantly is pig movement. So you want to have your system set up in a way that once that pig walks onto the trailer, they don't have the ability to turn around. So make sure that they're moving in a uterolateral direction. Now let's talk feed. So feed is also another source for disease exposure, particularly for PED, as I mentioned earlier. So you want to make sure that you've got proper storage and handling to limit risk of exposure. And if you do have a feed spill, ensuring that you're cleaning up that feed spill as quick as possible to minimize the risk of pests such as birds, possums, skunks, you name it. And also ensure that your feed is being delivered following a biosecurity pyramid. So going from your highest health farm to your lowest health farm. Now let's talk manure management. So manure is a valuable resource for crops. I've had some producers refer to it as liquid gold. It can be something that we can use instead of synthetic fertilizers. And so we do pumping. Most systems will pump manure twice a year, sometimes once a year, sometimes 3 times, depending on their system. But this can also be a pinch point for us. Because you're moving all of that material, right? And sometimes it can, if you've had an enteric bug in the past, it can kind of pop back up. So making sure that you've got a manure management plan, you understand the drive paths, the farm personnel, making sure you have a separate entry, exit, and equipment, and making sure that you've talked to those applicator crews or your manure crew and saying, hey, these are our biosecurity protocols. While the manure, during that visit for the manure management, confirm that the equipment is clean and disinfected. Make sure that those crews that are working with the manure do not have access to the farm office, barns, or animal areas. ensuring that they're wearing clean clothing and you're not applying that manure directly next to barns, and you're not allowing manure or associated liquids to enter animal areas, and making sure that you don't have any manure on walking paths. After the pumping, make sure that you are encouraging cleaning and disinfection of equipment. Instruct the applicators to follow the designated exit pathway. Most importantly, you're going to want to monitor your animals closely for health changes after a manure pump. Next would be mortality management. This is very important. If you do have some mortalities, you want to make sure that you place them at the line of separation within the barn and remove those mortalities at the end of the day. Some sites will have different clothing that is designated for mortality handling as well as equipment. The most important thing as it relates to swine medicine and keeping our pigs healthy is making sure that we have a collaboration between the producer, the folks working in the barn, and the veterinarian. Different sectors and regions of our industry, so we've got show pigs, we've got niche, we've got hobby, we've got commercialization. They're all going to have slightly different disease profiles, risks, and treatment options. So it's important that you have a strong relationship with your producer to make sure that you're doing what's best for that particular site. Just want to leave you guys with some industry tools for producers and veterinarians from National Pork Board. As I mentioned before, we have our Secure Pork Supply Plan, which is our enhanced biosecurity program. We also have AgView, which would be our traceability program. And so what that does is it allows us to electronically communicate movement records. We also have our Certified Swine Sample Collector program, which empowers non-veterinarians to collect samples in the event of a foreign animal disease. We've got our Pork Quality Assurance Plus, which outlines good production practices with direct references to influenza, public health, and worker safety. As I mentioned before, we also have, transport is something that we really need to be mindful of. So we have our Transport Quality Assurance, which is designed to help pig transporters, producers, and handlers understand how to best handle and move and transport pigs. I will pass it on to Dr. Fowler.
Perfect. And I will end out by just highlighting how, kind of stepping back for a little bit here, right? We've heard about the basics of pork production, got some of that terminology, walked you through some of the key aspects of the industry and production in general. You heard from Dr. Rotolo on those common diseases. So I just want to highlight how in the swine industry, we work in a One Health way every single day. So first, grounding you on a definition, mind you, probably preaching to the choir here. This is an archived definition from the One Health Commission. What I love about it is that it calls out One Health as an approach that requires collaboration. It's scalable, local to global, and of course calls out those sectors of human health, animal health, and environmental health. But what we've been seeing over the years, thanks to the One Health high-level expert panel, they're now in their second iteration, is this new kind of visual definition of One Health, which goes beyond just the sectors, recognizes that there are societal impacts, and by implementing the 4 C's of One Health, we're able to move on to healthy people, healthy animals, and a healthy environment. So how does this relate back to the swine industry? Well, you've heard about production in general, but we talked about being consumer-led, right? And producer-led and consumer focused. And our aim is really to earn public trust and consumer trust so that they feel comfortable consuming our product. And in order to do that, we recognize there's some steps we need to put in place. We need to be grounded in a set of principles that we can translate into practices, then validate with different proof points, whether it's an audit or an assessment, and then share that information and research that we collect along the way out with the end consumer, and recognize the chain link. It's on purpose. This is an iterative process, right? We're always going back, looking at our principles, updating those practices, so on and so forth. The most important part as we think about One Health on this slide here are those principles. The principles that we have in the swine industry are the We Care ethical principles. They describe ethical, responsible, and even sustainable pork production. You can see the 6 listed here, and hopefully as you start to peruse them, you can see how they map back to the One Health approach. If not, no worries, I've done the hard work for you. You are welcome. You can see environment mapping back to environmental health, animal well-being to animal health, and then the majority of those We Care ethical principles, the remaining 4 actually map back to the human health sector of the One Health approach. Now, in a true One Health way, it's recognizing that all 3 of these sectors are important and that we need to look at and balance these aspects every single day. And I'm proud to say when I work with farmers, they say, you know, Heather, I'm just trying to do what's right for people, pigs, and planet, right? So they may not say One Health, they may not use the jargon, but we know that we're working in a holistic One Health way by optimizing and prioritizing human, animal, and environmental health simultaneously. Now, to drive that home, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. I actually pulled the images from the slide from my colleague who covers animal welfare. You can imagine how she would cover this when talking animal housing, animal handling, and even herd health. But as a One Health champion, I can't help to see the human aspects in each and every one of these slides. And that's because, again, simultaneously in a One Health way, animal health and human health are represented on the farm. We're producing a product that is hopefully delicious, that you enjoy to consume, nutritious, produced in a way that is ethical and responsible, that optimizes animal health, human health, and environmental health. So hopefully seeing all of those things represented here, right? This animal health environment is the worker safety environment, that micro environment, but also the curtain down here, you can kind of get a peek outside and recognize, you know, the need for producers to implement environmental practices to make sure that they're ensuring the sustainability and future of their industry and their business. So when we think about sustainability outside of the barn, Dr. Hostetler had already highlighted how we work with certain organizations. Again, you should be familiar with NPPC, or National Pork Producers Council. Some folks may or may not know you have the National Pork Board, but we also have those state associations. And those state associations have direct contact with producers in their state and have a direct ear to them. And we essentially partner with them to make sure that we can meet the needs of those producers. Are they needing new research? Do they have new research questions, etc.? And so that's where you come in as our external partner. So hopefully no one's offended if they do not see their logo here. We couldn't put too much on this slide, but just to represent some of our federal partners, NGOs, universities, academia, that we partner with every single day on shared values in a holistic, collaborative, One Health way. I also want to use this slide as a reminder that if you have any questions or concerns following this presentation, I know we only have a few minutes left here in the hour and your answer doesn't get addressed, feel free to reach out. If you're interested in collaborating, we're definitely open to it. With that said, I want to introduce you to members of our team. So there's 2 teams that I want to highlight. The sustainability team, which myself and Dr. Hostetler are a part of. We serve as subject matter experts. Dr. Hostetler in pig production in general as an animal scientist and nutritionist. I cover public health. My colleague Stephanie Wetter, who shared those images that you saw earlier, animal welfare, and Marguerite Tan, environmental programs. So you can already see how not only are we committed to those We Care ethical principles, translating those into practices, but we're hiring the staff that are experts in those different areas. We also have a team leader who has expertise in sustainability as a whole, and even team members that cover sustainability programs and research. The other half of this kind of science and technology group, if you will, is the swine health team. And that's where the majority of the veterinarians at the National Pork Board live, excluding myself. So no one other veterinarian at the National Pork Board. Again, you heard from Dr. Marisa Rotolo today. There are 4 other members of that swine health team. And then wanted to call out Sarah Catherine Arthur, who is our business coordinator for both teams, which is important and relevant. If you reach out and say, hey, we're interested in meeting our team with your team, you'll likely be introduced to her quickly, as she really helps keep us on task and helps us plan out different meetings, whether virtual or in person. Want to end with giving you guys some important links and resources, and happy to share these slides. A link here to the homepage. Dr. Hostetler covered some of that history. If you want to learn more, there's an About Us page. There's even a YouTube channel that goes into the history of the National Pork Board. There are farm tours and other videos on there. We didn't get into the pork fabrication piece here, though we did mention the obviously pork as a product and food safety. So encourage you to check that out. There is a Pork 101 that goes over how do you convert a carcass, a frozen carcass in the plant into different cuts that you might be familiar with, and also have some cooking tips. And then lastly, but most importantly, I want to highlight that there is opportunity to get on our listserv and learn more about what we're doing every day. There'll be a QR code on that last slide as well. And again, happy to share these slides. So hopefully I made it clear that in the swine industry, we are working in a One Health way every day through those We Care ethical principles that helps us be ethical, responsible, and sustainable. Happy to stop sharing. I think there's 3 minutes left. We did it. If there are any questions from the group, thank you.
So we'll go into a few questions. We've got several on here. I know the speakers have been typing some of the questions, responding. I believe this question came in when Dr. Rotolo was speaking. Do you have any information on the current prevalence estimate for influenza A virus in U.S. swine?
I would say we don't necessarily have I can't provide you with a number, but I would say the majority of our swine operations probably have flu or have seen flu in the past. It's a relatively prevalent pathogen. We have a lot of experience managing it.
Okay. Also, for Dr. Rotolo, a question about shower in and shower out locations in the perimeter buffer area or the line of separation on your facility maps.
So your shower in, shower out will typically be found at the line of separation and not the PBA or the perimeter buffer area.
Okay.
And then I see the question about bringing lunch through UV and disinfection.
Yes, I was going to hit that one next.
Perfect. So typically what you would do is it's called the double bag policy. So you would put your lunch in like a Ziploc bag or a Tupperware container, and then you would take like a grocery bag and cover that. And then when you bring it to the farm, you take the Tupperware out and put it either in the UV chamber, or you can put it, if they have a pass-through window, you can wipe it down with Clorox, or you could spray it, and then it would go through that way.
Okay. Does the National Pork Board have an opinion on when there is an identified pathogen found that can be traced back to a specific farm about the ability of a quote unquote higher power to get onto the farm to figure out how to address the pathogen?
I'm not certain if National Pork Board really has an opinion here. I'm assuming this is referencing maybe bringing like a state animal health vet or an epi team to come in to try to figure out how a certain pathogen got there. That's going to be at the discretion of the producer and the veterinarian.
Well, and likely depending on the pathogen,
That as well, yes.
USDA and APHIS and all that.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking a foreign animal disease or emerging disease, yes, we will have some federal and state folks obviously involved. But if we're talking an endemic pathogen, it's rare to search for an outside source to help unless it's a continual issue at this particular farm.
Okay. Is there a vaccine for PRRS, PED?
We do have vaccine products for PRRS and PED as well as influenza. The efficacy for these vaccines is they help to mitigate the impacts of the disease, but they aren't completely preventable. And there are some new vaccine technologies as it relates to PRRS and PED and influenza, which have shown promising results. So stay tuned.
Okay. I believe believe that answers all of our questions. I know there was a couple comments too that I'd just like to highlight. I can scroll through here. A couple of animal welfare comments. First one, as animal health is one of the 5 domains of animal welfare, I appreciate that our first speaker, Dr. Hostetler, mentioned how few pigs are in farrowing crates compared to all pigs in the U.S. There can be a lot of focus on farrowing crates, but I commend the data cited in this presentation. And there was another comment regarding, this was in the chat. Dr. Fowler encourages everyone in the chat session to not forget to sign up for the Swine Health Bulletin if you're interested. She provides a website in the chat. Pretty much if you go to porkcheckoff.org, you can find how to subscribe to the Swine Health Bulletin. That pretty much completes our questions. I'm looking through the chat here to see if the chat is moving very quickly, speakers, and it's mainly to commend you on a great presentation. One last question did come in. What percentage of farmers are vaccinating their swine? Is it very common, uncommon? I think it'd be tough to come up with a percentage, but are most producers vaccinating their swine?
I would say for some vaccines, yes, they're like PCV2. Most people are using that vaccine. As it relates to PRRS or influenza or PED, that's going to be more of a farm specific question. We do have autogenous vaccines available for our bacterial pathogens such as strep suis, and those are becoming more commonplace, and especially in our genetic or high health herds. But vaccine is really going to be on a case by case basis unless we're talking something like a PCV2. Chris, any thoughts?
Yeah, I would not know a statistic for that, but certainly there are some diseases that are vaccinated for because they're more prevalent. And I think about it, the breeding herd as well, so breeding diseases as well. So Bordetella, Pasteurella, parvovirus, those types of things.
Okay, and I know I said one more question, but I'll throw this last one up there because it is kind of a big one. And I'm not going to put the speakers on the spot, but any comments about African swine fever and the U.S.'s current biosecurity measures? Again, I guess it's free for all of the speakers.
You kick that off, Marisa.
Yeah, I knew that was going to come to me. This is a really good question, and it's really something that can keep a person up at night. So I would say our industry is very practiced in biosecurity. We have a lot of different programs, such as our Secure Pork Supply, our AgView Certified Swine Sampler Collector program, which are great resources and tools should we have a foreign animal disease, not just ASF, but any foreign animal disease enter the U.S. herd. In addition to that, we have U.S. SHIP, which is the Swine Health Improvement Plan, which is another program or tool for producers to maintain business continuity as well as set some guardrails for how we would continue to do business as a country. I think if we were to get a foreign animal disease, it would be it would be devastating, but I think we have the tools and the producer support to do what we needed to do in order to get it out of our herds and to keep our pigs healthy.
And I would just to piggyback on that, on top of having that background and experience in biosecurity for decades now, right? We're continuously improving in that space, and want to plug. I see Dr. Abby Cannon was here, and she dropped a link to ASV's annual conference. And so at that annual meeting, as well as other swine meetings throughout the year, there's opportunity to share additional findings around new biosecurity practices, around the clean dirting line, disinfection, cleaning and disinfection, etc., to look at the efficiency of different products or activities. So we are continuously improving in that space as well.
Okay, well, I think we have come to the end of our hour plus, and we've come to the end of our questions. So I want to thank our three speakers, Dr. Hostetler, Dr. Rotolo, and Dr. Fowler, for a fantastic presentation. A lot of our attendees are throwing up the clapping hands, and very, very well attended webinar. People stuck through it. So I definitely commend you for a well executed presentation about the U.S. swine industry. We can't do this without the volunteers that we get. So I want to thank each of you, but I also want to encourage anyone online that if you know of someone or have a topic or that you would like to present, please contact us. You can reach out to the ACVPM at any time and say, hey, I'd like to present on, whatever the topic may be. We'll get that to the Continuing Education Committee and they will be in touch. We pretty much have the next couple webinars scheduled, but I know we're looking into spring and summer. So, we need more speakers. So I will close out today. Again, thank you for your time. Thank you to our speakers. And an invitation went out for our next webinar. It'll be on February 10th. And hope you all can attend. So thank you very much. Have a great evening.